Should we suffer physical pain and torture for the sins of others like Dave, aka a voice in the desert, teaches his followers? Answer: no. Jesus is the only sacrifice for sins. It is finished.
They say they do it all for God, subjecting themselves to pain, handing over everything they own, cutting ties with their families, even donating their organs. Gina Silva got a rare look inside this little-known group, and here she is now with a Fox 11 exclusive.
Christine, they're called Jesus Christians. They're a small group, only numbering about 50 worldwide, mostly young members following the rules of their leader. Tonight, Fox 11 Undercover takes you inside their very private world, and we warn you, some of the images may be disturbing.
Inside this middle school auditorium, a small bed takes center stage. It's not a prop for a children's play. It's the setting for something very real and flat out disturbing. Something that has these people running to get their loved one out, only to have the doors slammed in their faces.
We're gonna wait here for y'all to come out.
Even the police show up.
Hello, lobby, please.
Why? Because violent punishment is taking place inside. Some cry in pain. Others try to hold it in. But when the cracking of the whip stops, all of them have the painful red marks to prove it was real.
I feel that what's important is that a statement has been made, that we feel very strongly about this.
David McKay is a leader of Jesus Christians, a religious group some say is a dangerous cult. That's a claim McKay strongly denies.
They don't even know what a cult is. Nobody does. It's just used to put down a group you don't like.
So why did McKay order these lashings? Not just on his members, but also on himself. It's a story that begins with a teenager named Joseph Johnson, a kid with a bright future. At Sarah High School in Gardena, Joseph was a basketball star. He was so good, scholarship offers came pouring in.
You know, the coach will call and offer a full scholarship. Then, on the other hand, the schools will be calling to offer him a full academic scholarship.
Joseph had a 4.5 grade point average. His coach, Duan Hurd, says Joseph planned to play ball in college and go to medical school.
I said, well, when you become a doctor, I want you to be my doctor, because I know you're going to be the best doctor.
But just before his graduation, Joseph disappeared. 7 days later, he showed up again as the new recruit of the Jesus Christians.
Blessed is he who shall eat bread in the kingdom of God.
Joseph made it clear his priorities had changed, and he was now following a new set of rules.
The members move in and live together 24/7. So in living together this way, then of course, there isn't the time for a lot of other activities that were involved in before.
That means no college, no family, no old friends. Members have to give up everything, even their kidneys. McKay believes Jesus Christians need to be live organ donors. Some might agree that donating a kidney to save a person's life is a noble thing, but making it a necessity raises serious concerns. Rick Ross, an expert on destructive cults, says McKay has way too much power over his young followers.
It's clear that they would do almost anything for Dave McKay. And when you have a small group gathered around an absolute leader like this, and the group lives communally and is relatively isolated, bad things often happen.
McKay says that's nonsense. And because he says he wants to dispel the cult accusations, he allowed Fox 11 News access into the private world of Jesus Christians. What do you get by being a part of this group?
You get meaning and purpose, because here is a platform to serve God. You know, you lose everything when you die anyway, so why not give it up now for God?
They move from city to city in these tiny campers, and every day wearing their red Jesus Christian t-shirts, they hit the pavement. They distribute their books, asking for donations and hoping they'll bring in more recruits.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
It's appreciated.
Keep on doing Lord's work.
And it was this book that first caught Joseph's attention. A Jesus Christian gave it to his mother on the street. She took it home and forgot about it. But Joseph read it, liked it, and he contacted the Jesus Christians.
I read the book and it was just very, very powerful.
Powerful enough to convince Joseph to stop what he loved so much, playing basketball. The day we met, he showed up some pretty smooth moves on the court. But he says he had to give it up to follow Jesus.
I've spoken to your mother. She says that you are part of a cult and that you've been brainwashed.
I'm not brainwashed. I can think for myself. I can speak for myself, you know. I like to think that I'm an individual with important things to share.
Joseph's family declined an on-camera interview, but they say when Joseph was 16, the Jesus Christians began secretly meeting with him.
I just couldn't believe it when I got the phone call from his mom stating that, you know, he was missing and that he was going to join a cult.
When Joseph returned to pick up his belongings and say goodbye to his family, he came with two Jesus Christians, Jeremy and Reinhard. A fight broke out, and Reinhard ended up in the hospital.
I was attacked and punched unconscious.
The Jesus Christians are outraged, and they want justice. So they've decided to put Joseph's family on trial, a Jesus Christian trial.
The fact that the family has refused to even offer a statement in their own defense.
Joseph's family won't have anything to do with this trial, but they are waiting outside with some of Joseph's old friends. All of them angry with the Jesus Christians for not letting them communicate with Joseph.
This is poison to your kids. You better beware. Because these people out here are manipulating minds.
Inside, the trial has been going on for nearly 2 hours, with numerous witnesses and exhibits. Finally, the verdict.
I hereby judge you as guilty and deserving 25 lashes.
4 members of Joseph's family are found guilty, at least in this Jesus Christian court, of beating up Reinhard. And since they're not here, 4 Jesus Christians have decided to take the punishment for them. McKay, his wife Sherry, Jeremy, and Joseph.
Why are you doing this?
I think it's loving for me to take the punishment for him.
For McKay, there's a different motive. He tells me the whippings are meant to embarrass Joseph's family.
God wants us to recognize our guilt. And
You're trying to humiliate them, and is that a godly thing to do?
they've humiliated themselves. Okay?
McKay says he's afraid of Joseph's family, and he calls the police.
We would like to get an escort out of here.
With officers escorting the Jesus Christians, Joseph's family and friends are kept back.
You should be ashamed of yourself. Manipulating kids' moms. You're not God.
Hello, sir. Officer, that's my son. And the Jesus Christians brainwashed him, sir. His mother saw her.
I know about the Bible, Joe. They telling you a lie. They telling you a lie, Joe.
Joseph finally responds, but it's far from what his family expected.
I don't know you. I never seen you in my life. I don't know who you are. Joseph.
And just like that, Joseph leaves with the Jesus Christians, leaving broken hearts and so many unanswered questions.
And that was just a devastating day for the Johnson family. Because Joseph is now 18, there's nothing the police can do. The Johnson family has not only lost their son to the Jesus Christians, Joseph's father and brother have now been charged with assault.
Question: is there any commandment in which Jesus, our King, commands us to donate our kidneys to hell-bound sinners? Answer: no, of course not. Question: what does Jesus command us over and over again in the Gospels to do for people that have a sick kidney? Answer: heal them in the name of Jesus Christ. By His stripes we were healed. If you have a lack of faith and cannot find anyone in your area with faith, you can indeed donate your kidneys to your Christian brothers and sisters, to your hell-bound earthly family members, or even to strangers. It is not a sin that leads people to death. However, making organ donation a condition and a standard for being a Christian will indeed send one to hell. Kidney donation should be a last resort for Christians. It is definitely not something that we must do. Dave is an impostor, a false teacher that in his delusion made organ donation more important than healing and deliverance in Jesus' mighty name. Read the second epistle to Peter, chapter 2, about teachers like him.
People who are dying are not hurting people, John. They're helping people. Simple as that. Don't try to make it into something somebody's going to get hurt. Yeah, I was flying from California to Australia, and they had a movie on there. I don't know how the airlines happened to get this thing called A Gift of Life, and it was about a boy who donated a kidney to his mother or his grandmother. But it was pretty powerful, very moving, and I just thought, well, my goodness, is that all it takes? You know, just somebody can give a kidney.
Dave emailed his group, who've renounced their possessions and live in camper vans in India, America, Australia and London. He said he was going to donate his kidney to a stranger, and if anyone else wanted to, they should let him know. Almost all of them have decided to donate their kidneys to strangers too.
How would you be if they actually decided that they'd made a mistake?
How would I be?
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's not my decision. I mean, it would be, how would they be? How would the hospital be? I mean, these are things that each of us is deciding as individuals. But to me, I consider it a privilege. You know, I've been fighting and struggling to get in there at the end of the queue and get it over with. You know, so I can feel that satisfaction that if I died afterwards, that at least somebody's going to live on with my kidney.
Dave says he's going to donate his kidney in Australia in a few weeks. In Britain, it's illegal for people to donate kidneys to strangers, so they've come up with backstreet tactics. Susan is an Australian living in London. She's been a Jesus Christian for nearly 20 years.
Yeah, so the idea came up that I should try and actively advertise my willingness to donate in this country. So a business card was developed, and it just says that if you need a kidney transplant, I can donate a kidney to you for free. Contact me at my email address,
which is
kidneyforfreefromme@yahoo.co.uk.
Susan has scattered her business cards around dialysis waiting rooms, tacked onto notice boards and slipped into the pages of magazines. She's put adverts all over the internet as well.
I'm just going down to the email shop to check my account. You never know what to expect. I'm not sure what it is about the UK, but everyone seems to be very frightened or unsure. Okay, I would really like to help someone who has a kidney disease, and I'm willing to donate my kidney to the first person I can, completely for free, no strings attached, no compensation, travel expenses or anything. Currently, it is illegal for me to donate anonymously or charitably here in the UK unless I am a close friend of someone who needs a kidney. So I would like to become a close friend of someone who needs a kidney. What are you, some kind of sick moron? That was a reply from someone. So I was excited to get a reply from someone in the UK, but he was like, who are you, a sick moron? You know, that was my... This is another response from the UK. It says, I've just read your email. I've got to tell you, you're sick. How can you give people false hope like that? A lot of these people are on dialysis, waiting for a kidney, and Mrs. Christianity has got 2 good ones. Whoopee for you. What are you going to do? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, or a raffle? You're one sick attention seeker. If you were for real, why be so desperate to send so many ads? You sound sad, lonely, and unwanted. Warm wishes. I mean, the gate you'll be touching when your number is up is bound to be hot. That's like you're going to hell, basically.
Hasn't he got a point, not the going to hell or the
eeny, meeny, miny, mo,
but the eeny, meeny, miny, mo? Isn't that...
Sure, it's eeny, meeny, miny, mo, but it's like with Schindler's List, for example, you know. He had an eeny, meeny, miny, mo situation too, but what was he supposed to do? Nothing? Okay, here's another one. You are probably using this opportunity to get into the USA. Who will pay for you once you get here? And where will you stay? Sorry, but no black market organs here. Stay in your own country.
Welcome to the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport.
They have not stayed in their own country. It's February 2002, and two Jesus Christians, Robin and Casey, are going to donate their kidneys to strangers in 2 days' time. I've sent them a video camera so they can make a video diary of their operations. Robin is 36. He's been with the group for 15 years.
Okay, here we are showing off the Liberator comic. It's basically the same message from the Gospel of Luke. We just put it in a comic form to make it fun and easy to read.
Casey is 23. He's been a Jesus Christian for less than a year. Like Bobby Kelly, Casey joined the group after being handed one of their comics on the street.
Here we have some spaghetti rings with the little bonus, the meatballs in there, as you can see.
Robin and Casey are Australians who live in a Jesus Christians camper van in Dallas. In America, it's not illegal to donate to strangers, although it is controversial and rare. But the hospital in Minnesota has declared them physically and psychologically healthy, and in 2 days' time, their spare kidneys will be removed. This is Robin's wife, Christine, who'll be doing most of the filming of the video diary.
Part of the idea of donating to somebody who I don't know is the fact that it's like a pure act of love, and it's like a donation to the human race.
Oh, I was jumping up and down. I was so happy. His and Christine's really made my day, I tell you. I was so happy to get both their responses because it was positive, you know.
It's the middle of February and Susan has, in 1 day, hooked up with 2 people who want her kidney. One is Larry in Colorado. The other is Christine in Scotland.
Initially, I kept thanking her and there was gratitude, and she feels that she's doing something that is necessary for her to do.
Did she explain why?
She told me with her little Christian sect that they basically believe if you have something that you don't need to sustain your life, and you can give it to someone else and it will help them sustain their life, whatever that might be. Jesus Christ. Try one leg. You should give it to them for their benefit, for their youth.
When I first got the initial email, I thought, nutter. I must admit there is a bit of me still a bit. There's got to be some sort of catch here, but as yet I've not sussed it out. And I don't believe there is one, just maybe my untrusting nature. She doesn't seem like a crazy off her head person. She seems quite a normal, sane person, so she obviously knows what she's doing. She's not been brainwashed as far as you can make out. If that's what she believes, everyone's got entitled to their own beliefs, haven't they? What is the group called? Does it have a name?
Jesus Christians.
Maybe I don't know.
They've never been that successful because, you know, it's not like the most fun religious cult to be in. You know, they don't.
It doesn't sound like you've got to give a bit of your body away to join it.
We're throwing away $201 notes in less than 10 minutes' time. You can keep as many notes as you can catch.
The Jesus Christians have been renouncing their possessions since Dave formed them in Australia in the 1970s.
We threw money away, for example. We'd save up until we had a few $100s and then, you know, make paper airplanes out of them or something and throw them away.
About this idea of giving away free money?
I think that's shocking too, as far as children are concerned.
Why?
Well, but I mean, if their parents can't afford to, why should you have children in here jumping in the water?
Sydney, go to hell might not sound like a very religious message, but it's come from a group describing itself as Christian. The group's been trying to show Sydney what it claims is a better way of living, but now it's giving up because apparently Sydney people just don't want to know about them.
Our job is simply to tell them what Jesus said, that people in Sydney have heard, and because they've heard, they're now responsible. If they go to hell, that's their fault, not ours.
Group members have spent the last few days plastering thousands of posters around the city. Again, the message is clear.
The group left Sydney and dispersed to America, India and London. In 20 years, Dave has only managed to attract 40 members.
I just, you know, assumed when we started out that you know, a movement's going to get going here. I mean, everybody else does that, they get movements, you know. But I think because we refuse to sort of cheat on the rules, we refuse to sweeten it up.
And on the rare occasions when they do attract a new member, there is usually very bad press.
Didn't they say that you can brainwash people within hours?
Yeah, I wish I could. I mean, that'd be great.
So maybe you'd have more members.
Yeah. I mean, we got to be the worst brainwashers in the world with the slow growth rate that we have.
The Jesus Christians continue to give up all their surplus possessions, including, now, their spare kidneys. Susan has to decide who to give her kidney to. She sent Larry and Christine a list of questions to gauge their suitability.
It was funny because even the questions I asked, I think they were sort of trying to figure out what is it that I wanted. And so they'd answer, you know, whatever I wanted to know because they were desperate. You know, like I'd say, do you drink or do you smoke? But I always got the same answer, you know, no, I don't smoke, no, I don't drink. You know, from all these people, they say they don't smoke and they don't drink. And I think, interesting.
It's 5:30 on the morning of the tests. Good morning, Casey.
Good morning, Rob and Cameron.
You know it's snowing outside.
It's a bit dark too.
You know, it's no way to talk about the world.
Yeah.
Robin and Casey will never meet their recipients. They're being kept away from them in another part of the hospital. It seems like a sensible law, as opposed to in Britain, where it's illegal to donate to strangers and where Susan is being forced to take on the role of some regulatory authority.
Hold that breath. You can relax, breathe normally, and lower your arms.
You're a brave man, Casey.
What do you think the media response to this is going to be when the story gets out?
I think we'll be the kidney cult for sure, you know, that we're chopping people up and selling them for spare parts. I mean, that's just from Bobby Kelly, I could believe that they're capable of writing anything.
I'm just about to mix up a substance which is called Go Lightly. It's a laxative. Casey and I are supposed to take this as a preparation for the operation tomorrow.
Drink it down.
You only had half a glass, man.
Tastes good? Casey's still going.
Sure.
Is that good stuff?
No. No, it's dripping. It's really bad. We'll get there, buddy.
I feel like I'm defiling myself or something.
Back in England, Dave told me about a woman called Anita Foster. She's trying to expose Dave in the British media as an evil and dangerous cult leader. The strange thing is, Anita Foster doesn't exist. Anita Foster is Dave.
Yeah, there's this fictitious woman called Anita Foster who's been sending a few emails to various people in preparation for this, yeah. She's posing as a mother of a member that doesn't exist.
Dave, writing under the pseudonym Anita Foster, has been emailing anti-cult groups implying that Dave has been coercing his members into selling their body parts on the black market. Dave hopes the tabloids will go into a frenzy, and then I'll come along and make the tabloids look stupid by writing a newspaper article which reveals the true story of the Jesus Christians' remarkable philanthropy. It seems like a crazy plan to me.
Give the tabloids a week to go for it, and then just refuse to comment. That'll be hard for a week, you know, because everyone will think the worst. But, I mean, this is, again, part of the whole media thing. If we don't speak, then it makes the message that much more significant when we do speak.
So why have you decided upon me as being the
Well, you did the one...
I could be like, as like the kind of tabloid frenzy cleaner-upper.
Well, I hope not, John.
But we got a good story from me before, and so your record speaks for it. But also, I prayed about it, and I felt like God was saying to trust you.
But what if the theoretical frenzy meant that all the donations that still hadn't happened are somehow stopped, that you become such a sinister cult that nobody wants your kidneys anymore?
Yeah, well, we've considered that, and I think actually the biggest concern that we have as Christians is just simply to get the message out. Okay, donating kidneys is for us actually a fairly minor sort of a thing.
But it's a big deal for the recipients.
Yeah, certainly it is.
You having last minute doubts?
No doubts. Just trying to stay open to whatever God wants. That's what you gotta do. Like a lot of people pray to God for like a miracle, specifically relating to kidney failure, kidney disease, and then kidney donations as well. When all it takes is just for someone to step forward and say, okay, I'll give. And that's the miracle, you know?
Yeah, so we can make a miracle happen.
All right, this is Casey calling his mother shortly before the surgery. Just waiting for her to answer. How are you doing today? Very good. So this is Casey, half an hour after the surgery.
There are a number of ways that this could backfire.
Yes.
So these potential backfiring scenarios out at you. Okay, firstly, it could backfire that the tabloids just think it's a really lovely thing that you're doing.
Well, it's not backfired. That'd be nice.
Okay. All right, well, that's one. Secondly, you don't like what I do. That I don't fulfill my remit as the cleaner-upper of the tabloid friends.
Well, do you think you could maybe do a worse job than the tabloids? I don't think so.
Okay, third, they just don't cover it. Nobody covers it. They just think, oh, it's not important.
Well, I mean, if that happens, I don't necessarily call that backfiring because they're not covering anything now, are they? So we've got nothing to lose. But that would be the worst of the three options you gave me, I think.
It's 2 days after Robin and Casey's operations. They're leaving hospital to recuperate at a friend's house nearby.
I was just kind of feeling a bit depressed and feeling like, almost like regretting, like having given the kidney, thinking like, why did I donate? Like, here I was trying to do something good and like this is what I get for it, all this uncomfortableness and pain. It could be that God's having me go through this trial or whatever so that I will learn to be more sensitive to other people who are uncomfortable and in pain. And I just have to be careful not to become hateful or bitter. So that's what I'm working on now.
It's April, and Susan has made her choice about who to give her kidney to. She's flown to Scotland to tell Christine the news.
Then want tea or coffee?
While Christine is in the kitchen making tea, Susan tells me about a dream she had, which she took to be a message from God.
Yeah, I had this dream where I met this guy who was about 60 and he had grey hair and he was a little bit overweight and he was really happy to see me because I was going to give him my kidney. And then it was the next day that I got this letter from Larry. So it was a bit of a dilemma, knowing whether to start with Larry or to wait and see what happened with Christine. But from the dream, I thought I should start working things out with Larry. It looks like, as of tonight, it looks like things can start with Larry, which is probably a bit disappointing for you in terms of between us, but yeah, I didn't want to get your hopes up too high to begin with.
I wasn't thinking that far ahead. I wasn't thinking that far ahead, thinking, oh, this is... But I was just more, like I say, I was more curious. as to why and if I can help. But anyway, yeah, fine. But I wasn't seeing it as, oh, great, this is it, I'm having that kidney.
Later, Susan tells Christine that another Jesus Christian called Reinhardt has agreed to give her his kidney. The Jesus Christians are doing their best, given the state of British law, but I think the whole thing is becoming messy and hurtful.
Would you want to go through the whole thing of meeting Reinhardt and all that type of thing? Or just do it all separately and then meet if things work out?
I'm not really sure.
I bought a photo of him actually, but
That sounds terrible, I'm not that bothered. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, I'm not really that bothered how it's done, just as long as it's done, if you know what I mean. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? But you know what I mean. I don't mean...
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And I'm not saying, oh, I'm so desperate I want your kidney, because I'm not that way either, because I'm quite prepared. I've been in dialysis before for a long time, and it doesn't particularly bother me.
Tomorrow, Dave will fly home to Australia. My newspaper article is about to appear. Dave's excited about the tabloid furore he believes will soon unfold. He thinks this will prove that those people who demonised him over Bobby Kelly are the sorts who only see self-mutilation where they should see charity and compassion.
What worries me is that the people getting lost in all of this are the recipients who are desperate and so thrilled to be possibly going down the line with Susan or you, and then suddenly this tabloid frenzy, which I think you're hoping might happen, stops all that from happening. So you achieve one aim, which is to make the cultbusters look bad, but in all of this the recipients are kind of lost. Do you know what I mean? And they don't get the kidneys.
When I first approached you, the thought was the tabloids are going to get it one way or the other, and they go with the kidney cult. You know, they're chopping their bodies up and they're selling them. Now my approach was, okay, let's get ready for them. Before that happens, we get John Ronson to satisfy himself that this is legitimate, what's being done. Now we've decided we won't bother. You've done your story. We won't bother doing the tabloids. If the tabloids decide to come in afterwards, they decide to come in afterwards. But it's not a case now where we're hoping the tabloids will write something, except for one thing. Now, I still feel a little bit guilty. I feel like now we've cheated, you see. Because if we just get a story that just say, you know, they're wonderful people, really, as Christians, we're not supposed to be doing that.
Well, I'll be a bit mean about you if you want.
Okay.
If that'll help.
Okay. You got that one.
Yeah, I guess I would hope that through this documentary, there's going to be a whole lot more donors. You see, and if a half a dozen of us fail to donate because of a scandal that comes out of this, but 100 other people do, well, the world's better off.
It's April. Robin and Casey have recovered and are now in London.
Yeah, great. If you can spare a few pennies to help with the printing, that would be really great.
This is how the Jesus Christians make their money to live. If they don't make enough money this way, they raid bins for food.
It doesn't matter what happens, we'll always have you. We'll just try and do what you want us to do. We'll just leave it to you to decide our fate. We just thank you, Lord, for the food on our plate.
I was away the morning that my article came out, so David, my cameraman, went to the Jesus Christians house without me.
Of course we're still talking. I mean, you know, we haven't had any calls from anybody so far. I mean, I was expecting an encampment outside, but nothing of the sort has occurred, so... Yeah. We can get a little bit more specific when you come and visit. I mean, we've got a little list, but it's not too big, so don't worry. So, yeah.
Hi, John. I just wanted to point out to you that it was a shame you didn't watch the video before you wrote the story about Casey supposedly having regrets.
Casey was a little upset that I'd written about his brief regrets after the operation. He said it was like accusing a woman in labour of regretting that she got pregnant. But he wasn't as angry as Dave. It was Anita Foster's fault. Dave thought I should never have mentioned her. Dave sent me a video message.
You brought this Anita Foster thing in as though this was the big issue. How was it you put it? I was trying through some Machiavellian plot to control the media. And you said, I begin to think of the story that has been handed to me as a poisoned chalice. I feel queasy about the decisions Susan has to make. And I feel queasy about Casey. So why did you write the story? It was your poison chalice, and you drank it with gusto.
No tabloid frenzy ensued, only an article in a local paper called the Catford News Shopper. Dave emailed to tell me he was pulling the plug on the filming. I heard that Dave didn't donate his kidney in Australia. He said there were problems with hospital bureaucracy. Instead, he drove across country to Woomera to protest against the detention of the asylum seekers. He stayed there for 5 months. Although the filming was over, Dave sent me many emails in the months that followed, and then a video message in which he explained to me my faults.
It occurs to me, Dave has scheduled the leak for mid-March, after Robin and Casey's operations, but before he, Susan, and the other Jesus Christians will have time to give their kidneys. Will the tabloid frenzy, if it occurs, scupper these plans? What if you become known as such a sinister cult that nobody wants your kidneys anymore? I ask him. Then you go on to include a quote from me that gives the impression that I'm saying, oh, so what? No big loss. Now, if you were not trying to imply that we were up to some scheme to get out of giving a kidney, what were you trying to imply? Simple as that.
Every day for months, I'd wake up to find scathing emails from Dave. They began to chip away at my sanity. I knew I hadn't accused Dave of trying to weasel out of giving his kidney, but I began to think maybe I had. I suggested apologising to Dave on screen. This moment of madness heartened the Jesus Christians.
Maybe it is good to say, hello, I'm John Ronson. I must apologise for my article and blah, 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 and I misrepresented. And to go specifically, I said this, that was wrong. And I guess I've been doing it for many years, reading into things or trying to make them more exciting, and in my zeal, I, misrepresented a few things, and I apologise. And I think Dave, he was extremely patient in going through the issues, and I was just marvelling at the amount of time he was putting into the whole situation.
Well, it certainly took many emails from Dave for me to see the error of my ways.
Yeah, I think that was worth it.
A few weeks later, I got an email from a woman called Liesel. She wrote that her daughter and grandchildren had joined Dave McKay's cult. She said she feared for their lives. When I got this email, I thought Liesel didn't exist. I thought it was Dave testing me. In fact, I only knew for sure that it wasn't a trap when Liesel came through the revolving doors of this hotel in Chicago.
Hi.
Very nice to meet you.
Liesel ran a restaurant in Florida with her daughter Annette. One day, she says, Annette just vanished with her children after meeting a Jesus Christian called Paul.
She took a Greyhound bus. There's a post office box as the only address. She just vanished one day. And she came, and I was so distressed. On that day, I couldn't even say goodbye to her. I was totally choked up.
Liesel was scared and out of her depth. She wanted to find something out about the group, so she emailed Dave.
I gave myself another name because I didn't want whoever the leader was to know that I was connected to Annette. So I called myself Megan Smith. And I wrote to him. I just said, what do I have to do to join your group? How long do people usually stay in your service? Do they all live together in a house or houses? Are there children? How many and who educates them? I have many more questions, but that's enough for today. Thank you very much for your attention. Yours sincerely, Megan Smith. And he wrote back almost immediately, and it says, Dear Megan, I'm at an airport and traveling at the moment, so I must answer this very briefly. Are you aware that we are looking for people who are willing to lay down their lives in service to God and one another? If you knew that sacrificing one of your organs would help someone else and help to spread the love of God, would you do that? Please think about it very seriously, because we are not just talking theory.
Liesl flew to Dallas to try and find her family. She hired a private detective and tracked them down to this house. But when she got there, no one answered. She believes Dave was keeping her family away from her.
And when I got back from Dallas, I had an email on my machine which said, Hi Megan, I'm so sorry that I missed you while you were in Dallas. How are things at the restaurant? It's been quite some time since I heard from you. Dave McKay for Jesus Christians. It's very spooky. I was totally freaked out when I got this, because then I knew that he knew I was in Dallas and he wouldn't let me see my children. I'm a 61-year-old woman. I run all over the place there. I spent 4 days there. I got one more email after that where he said I was stalking them. There really needs to be ground for such stalking, and I do not think that you have presented any. Well, he calls my visit to Dallas stalking. That's the three of them, Anna, Jessica, and Tyler.
I think it's impossible to be objective about the kidneys. Your opinion changes in relation to the way Dave chooses to take hold of your life. Liesl's life has been shattered, so she can see little good in it.
It's like, there's no real plan. Like this kidney thing came to him suddenly, so there's not really any plan for the future, I feel. He can come up with something tomorrow that's going to be more dangerous than what he's doing today, and everyone will follow him.
Dave wouldn't talk about Liesl in a face-to-face interview, but he sent me a message in which he apologised for repeatedly calling her a stalker. But, he said, Annetta joined the group of her own free will and wants to stay with them. Dave sent me an email. He wrote that Christine in Scotland was dying. He said he could instruct one of his members to give her a kidney, but if he did, I'd only accuse him of manipulation. So instead, he wrote, he had decided to let Christine die and let her death be on my conscience. A few days later, he sent me a video message.
It's 1:30 in the morning here in Australia. I've just received an urgent telephone call from the UK. It seems that Christine from Scotland has had a turn for the worse, and I have to make a decision immediately if we're going to help her at all. At the moment, the only person who's available in the community to help her out is Reinhard, and he's booked to fly to India tomorrow morning. The problem with Reinhard is that although he's willing to donate, he's not very keen. I could push him into it. I have to make a decision, and there's a life depending upon it. The decision that I make is going to have to take into consideration the repercussions from the media, people like yourself. As you know, we stopped the filming after your article appeared in The Guardian. Amongst other things, I was upset by the fact that you portrayed me as a manipulator, forcing or coercing Casey into doing something that he might later regret. I think that was terribly unfair, both to Casey and to myself. No way did I push him into doing it. I didn't even approach him. It was his idea and he ran with it. And that's why we decided not to cooperate with you. But now after this phone call tonight, I've had to rethink. I'm prepared to go ahead with the documentary, but only on one condition, and that's that you use this video. You see, I'm not going to say anything to Reinhard. I'll let him fly out tomorrow. And I'll let Christine's blood be on your head, and on the heads of the authorities there in England. Those people who felt that because a group of Christians wanted to donate their kidneys to strangers, there was something wrong with us. Something needs to be done about the situation with regard to donations, live donations to people who need kidneys there in the United Kingdom. So go ahead, make your documentary, but don't forget to tell them about the recipients. That's the big picture, John. And that's what's been overlooked, that these recipients are real people. People like Christine. Thank you.
It turned out that Christine wasn't as sick as Dave had been led to believe. Dave emailed me to say he was a little embarrassed about his theatrics. I entered Dave's world a year ago, believing that the anti-cult groups were the crazy ones, comparing Dave to Invasion of the Body Snatchers. But now I thought of Dave that way. Why? Because I really don't like him. How could Dave sit there weighing someone's life in his hands and then blame me? I'd allowed myself to be influenced by Dave. Now I was out of it, I began to dislike him irrationally. I think in the way that former members of sects irrationally resent their leaders after they leave.
Well, John has suggested that the opposition that we receive, the Jesus Christians as a community, may be at least partly, if not largely, a result of my personality, that people just find me very difficult to get along with, and that's the reason that the cult image has come up. What do you feel about that? You know me at my worst.
You're a very confident person, and people sometimes take exception to that. I think it has more to do with discipline, that in today's world, discipline is a bad thing unless you're in the army or you're studying or you're trying to make money. In any other realm, discipline is considered bad.
And now it's Susan's turn to donate. She chose Larry instead of Christine on the basis of a dream, which she took to be a message from God.
I'm nervous about meeting Larry. I mean, nervous just about because it's so exciting, I think.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Hi. Hi, Daniel. What's cooking, kid?
Larry?
How are you?
Okay.
Welcome to Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
You're a handsome little devil.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dave had said that any TV crew would be more reputable than me. Now he's put this to the test. He's invited 7 Network Australia's Today Tonight programme to film the operation.
What we don't want is lots of different TV crews sort of jostling each other while the doctor's got your kidney.
Stop, hold it, hold it. Yeah.
That's what we
Don't
want to
drop
avoid,
it,
right?
you know.
Ah, what a doll. I mean, it's just a delight. You know, we were talking this morning, and I said, every time I look at her, I see a little halo in back of her head. Hi, honey, what's cooking? You notice the halo behind her head, David?
Quite amazing.
I told them you're my little angel.
That's really the truth, too.
Not a question about it. Yep. She does have a halo. You can see it. Look right.
1,200 miles away, Dr. David Steinberg is discussing Susan's case with the influential Harvard Medical Ethics Committee. David Steinberg was surfing the web when he came across Susan offering her kidney to a stranger.
This is the first time I've ever chatted with anybody on the web. I don't do that. But I must tell you, you've heard all these stories about people who meet people on the web. It is potentially very powerful. I mean, it is really...
Does your family know?
I mean,
Put a block on it.
if they don't know, they know now.
So this is for the CAT scan?
I would like everyone in the room to imagine that you are sufficiently young to donate a kidney. The chances of dying are about 1 in 3,000, and there may be a very small risk in living the rest of your life with only one kidney. And the question I'm going to ask is, how many people in this room would donate one of their kidneys to a stranger? So please raise your hand if you would donate one of your kidneys to a stranger. Okay. I set my mission to talk to this woman and probe and find out what was going on. And she probably changed my view on the subject. I pointed out if anything happened to her, her 7-year-old son would be without a mother. And so let me give you her response. And she's very clever. What about police and firemen? Should they be told they shouldn't do their jobs in case something happens to them and their children will be with one less parent? And then she says, my son understands what I'm doing, and he will know for the rest of his life why I died.
Religious groups talk about organ donations as the greatest gift of life, the greatest expression of love thy neighbor, and these are very positive incentives for what I would call the fantasy of heroic virtue. That they create a romanticization of heroism and back it up with religious authority in a way that makes me extremely uneasy. Extremely uneasy. Now, this is a question, I think, for religious organizations. Should the medical community profit off of this activity? I would say no.
Hold your breath.
Although David Steinberg had been impressed by Susan, in the end he seemed to agree that hospitals were exploiting religious fundamentalists who wanted to donate their kidneys to strangers.
Are we taking advantage of them when we take the kidneys? I began to think a little bit now, is she part of a cult? Is she really being manipulated on some level that she's not aware of? You know, the people in the transplant business, their job is to get kidneys.
You don't know what she eats, you don't know how she lives, you don't know her sleep deprivation.
Yeah, but he's not gonna make this decision.
But that's why I'm saying you could never.
But she's going to donate to someone in Colorado. I mean, that's, you know, she's head on doing that. But they'll take the kidney.
Back in Madison, the hospital are having second thoughts about whether to let the operation go ahead. Susan is called to see the social worker.
So this is a pretty extreme gift, you know, that people have a hard time deciding whether to do for someone that they know and love. Never went through a rebellious phase?
All my life.
All your life you've been rebellious?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you mean by that? You always been a little bit different?
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Just not being willing not to just follow the crowd. And then she said, well, I really think you need a psychiatric evaluation. I thought, oh no, what have I done? You know? So I thought that. And so then she gave me these questions to fill out, and there was like 567 questions, you know. Do you love your mother? One of them was, do you think you deserve to die because of the bad things that you've done? And things like that, like really heavy stuff. And, you know, it's one of those dilemmas, I think, because, you know, from a Christian perspective, yeah, we've all sinned, we all deserve death, sort of thing. But you tick yes on a question like that, and they think, oh, now we know why she's giving a kidney, you know. She's trying to commit suicide, sort of thing. So, yeah.
An hour passes, and then the news comes through that they will let the operation go ahead.
I would have murdered them if they said no. I mean, it was a matter of my life or theirs, it would have been at that point. The point of it is, if it truly is a miracle, which I absolutely believe it is, then nothing could have gone wrong.
Well, even if something does go wrong, it's still part of the whole picture that we don't have to understand everything.
But it appears as though it was meant to be.
For shared.
Planned by God, right?
Yep.
So.
What else? It's a good feeling when you're about to go into something like major surgery, to know that like God's been making it happen all the way through. It's great.
Personally, I was glad that the operation went ahead. Susan has been a Jesus Christian for 20 years. I can't believe that her whole adult life has been one long coercion by Dave.
Not that joint, not that joint. Okay. Not that joint. Much too short. Okay, close that.
Roll left now, lights on. Box please, gas off.
Hurry up. What we are doing now is we are flushing the kidney. The blood is going to be flushed out, and the kidney changes color. You see here, it's turning nicely white, grayish. Turn the table a little bit, at the same time do that.
Everything went just fine. Here you go, our sleeping beauty.
Run through here, and we'll go find my friend Susan.
Nobody knew it at the time, but it would turn out that Dave inviting the Australian crew would not be as successful an operation as the transplant.
Now to a bizarre cult targeting young Australians. It takes their money and their possessions, then flies them halfway around the world for the ultimate entry fee, the donation of a kidney to a complete stranger.
This perfectly healthy Australian woman is about to give a vital body organ to a total stranger. Sounds crazy. Well, not to Susan Ellis's extreme religious group.
He's now going into a sort of dangerous area where he's asking his people essentially to mutilate themselves. And if he believes that this is the expression of Christianity, then he's got it wrong. I think he's getting older and he's getting desperate that the world's not hearing him. And it just makes him look really, in some ways, pathetic.
Dave dismissed this report as the usual sensationalism. He said Susan's goodness shone through.
We've told you this before, but we refer to Susan as our angel.
I think an angel is a messenger from God, and sometimes angels can be well received or not so well received. I was thinking a bit about that with regard to what happened, with the Bobby Kelly thing. Just the experience of being hated by what seemed to be everybody. It's sort of an interesting comparison to sort of what's happening now, where there's a lot of positive compliments and things like that from people.
Some people do things and then they complain about it, okay? Other people just are thrilled to do it. And those are the people that are the angels.
Well, John, there's a lot of people that have been trying to get some dirt on me. This might be your chance to get some of the real thing.
It's November 2002. Larry and Susan are doing well. Christine in Scotland is back on dialysis. And Dave is booked in to donate a kidney to a man from California in January 2003.
It doesn't matter what happens, we'll always have you. We'll just try and do what you want us to do. We want you to know that we love you so, and it's you that we serve.